Okay, we did some of these simple joins and inner and outer, left and right. I'm going to do a little bit more analysis as to what's going on, why my numbers are going, why the number of observations is getting bigger, because it shouldn't be. If it's indeed, especially my inner join, only the things that should exist, right? And so I'm not really sure why even on my left join that number is getting bigger. So I'm going to do a little bit more research. I'm excited to figure out why that's occurring. All right, so what happens if you were going to do a join, but you had two variables? Let's say, for example, you wanted to use brand and description. Okay, so if you wanted to do that, the way to execute that, and we'll put this in here because I want to see how it works. We'll put, this is double, we'll call this data frame double. It's going to be PD merge. We're using sales and prices. We're going to do it as an inner join. And the on changes. Now we want to do it based on brand and description in brackets, right? Those are the two columns. So let's see what double does for us. So I call this double because we are using two variables to do the inner join. Okay, so double is 134,660,050, right? Versus the other inner was 135,69. So this is about 3,400 items lower than my inner join that I did here, which is interesting, right? So that tells you, you know, this is a much more maybe precise, but I'm also potentially losing some data because my sales data was 68,238. So I've lost about 2,200 observations when I did this. So again, very interesting to me. I'm going to do a little more research and find out why that is. All right, one of the problems with merges and what we do with this, right? Notice what's happening. I had 14 variables, now I have 22 and 21 in the double. You know, there are some of these variables I just don't need. So we need to go back to understanding how to delete columns. All right? I mentioned it before, right? And when you look at any of these data frames, you'll notice that the first data frame, right, the first one listed, is given an underscore X when there are two of the same variable. And the second data frame is given underscore Y, right? Because that's the X, that's the Y. So you may also rename your remaining variables, eliminating the X if you want to do that as well. So there's a couple of things that we want to do, right? So you may also rename the remaining variables variables by eliminating, thus eliminating the underscore x, right? If we want to keep those variables, we don't want them to have an underscore x in there. All right, so we're looking at inner, right? I think I've got, do I have inner over here? This is an inner, this is sales. I don't want that open. This is price, I don't need that open. So inner, let's, here's my variables for inner, right? So I want to drop any of the things that have a subscript Y. So description Y, size Y, volume Y, classification Y, vendor name Y. Okay? I want to get rid of those. All right? You'll notice that, interestingly, vendor number and vendor number are differently labeled between the sales file and the price file. So I probably also want to get rid of vendor number as well. So I've already gone through, I don't need to type all this again, but I've already got this piece of code ready to paste in here. And I just want to make sure you can see it all. So what we're doing here is we are renaming inner. We're going to do inner.drop, and we're going to drop description Y, price. Let's see, price. Because I have sales price here. This price is the sales price, so I don't need price. I want to get rid of size Y, volume Y, classification Y. I want to keep purchase price. I want to get rid of vendor number. And I also want to get rid of vendor name Y. All of this will get rid of those items. So if we look at inner, we should see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 less variables when I run this piece of code. Remember, you got to make sure you've got, it's either in a cell or you've got to highlight both. So I'm going to put my pound and then create the cell, and now we'll run it. Run the cell. And what am I left with inner after it's done? Should be 7 less, so 15, and that's what I have now. So I've gotten rid of those 7 variables. All right? Okay, if we want to save any of our any of these data frames which I've just created, right? To save any data frame, the code's pretty simple. All right? Code is pretty simple. So all right, so this will save the data frame. To the current working directory. If you want the data frame, I gotta put a pound in there, just a little different documentation. If you want the data frame saved to a specific site, then put the full path in. All right, so this is what it's going to look like. So first of all, this simple code, we want to go inner to a CSV, and I'm going to call this inner join.csv. Oh, I got to put that in quotation marks too, so that's not going to work, right? This won't work if I don't put in quotation marks. Just like that. And that will send it to where I want it, to my current working directory. So let's run it. It's saving, it's saving. while this is working, I'll write the other one, which is to the path. Inner dot to underscore CSV, and then put in the path. F I'm going to call this 1. All right, that's still saving. Takes a while. Another thing to always, while this is working, another thing I want you to always be looking at here is how much memory you're using by having this many data frames open, etc. So once this gets up to 100, it's going to shut down on you. So you've always got to be aware that you might need to delete some of these things. So if I didn't really need the double, I might remove that, and that might change how much memory is available or how much is being used, right? And you see that go from 68 to 61. Maybe I don't need the right. I'll remove that one, and we'll see it go from 61 down to 57, 54. So if you are using up a lot of your memory, you need to delete some stuff just so you can free it up, especially if you're going to be doing lots and lots of processing. Now I had previously saved this inner join, so it may be replacing what we're doing, which is fine. And I'm just going to pause this until we get some evidence that this actually finished. Okay, we finally got both of these things to run, and we can see when we go over to Files, we can now see that our inner join and inner join 1 were loaded into those directories. All right, so it took a little while, but that's okay. We got there. Now, while I've been waiting for those to load, I've been trying to figure out what's going on with the change from sales as far as number of lines to this inner join, left join, outer join. I guess I got rid of the right join to free up some space, but it's just the difference between the inner sales versus outer. And so what I did is I said, well, let's, because by doing this merge, I shouldn't increase total sales. So what I did is I said, well, let's get the sum of sales dollars for the sales, and let's compare that to the inner, and let's also compare that to the other one that was bigger, outer. And let's figure out what the sales dollars are here. So the first one I did was, let's do sales. Okay, so this is from the original data, so that's 577,915 of sales. Sales inner, it goes up. That's a problem, because this merge should not increase our sales. So something's happening with the merge that's adding lines. It would require more analysis. Don't just do a merge and say, I merged it, it must be right. You have to do a merge, and you have to do these diagnostics. And then when I did the outer gave me not applicable, right? So something's going on with this outer that I've got some NAs in there. That makes sense. That makes sense to me, that there may be things that are in prices that aren't being sold, and so those would get an NA for sales dollars. But this difference here between these two, that's problematic for me, and that would require me to do a lot more review to figure out what was happening.